No! I'm not done. I'm not done. Da-na-na. Da-na-na-da-na. Makes sense. It wouldn't be on any of these. No, the answer's not gonna come that simple. Think, DJ, think. Concentrate! No, don't concentrate. This one instance, do the exact opposite. Remove all thought from your brain. What sort of mysteries do you hide, you slight, gray little mystery game?
Ask you something. What console do you normally play video games on? PlayStation? Xbox? How about Nintendo? If you were a child of the 80s or early 90s and lived in either Japan or the US, chances are your answer would be Nintendo. The Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES, was the console that revolutionized the video game industry. While it faced some stiff competition in Europe and Australia from Sega's Master System, and to a lesser extent from NEC's 16-bit PC Engine in Japan, in the United States, the NES was virtually unrivaled. Every home in the US and Japan had one of these systems by the TV. Every kid and adult knew and loved these systems. All the greatest games were coming to it, and Nintendo was such a household name that it became automatically synonymous with video games. But then, in 1988, their rivals at Sega gave Nintendo a run for their money by releasing a new, much more powerful 16-bit system called the Sega Genesis. It made a lot of buzz in both PAL regions and the United States, where it threatened the NES's popularity and attracted the attention of third-party developers. Nintendo knew they had to step up their game if they wanted any chance of surviving the console war. And so, for the first and only time of any home console generation, Nintendo released the most powerful game system on the market, the Super Famicom! Or Super Nintendo as it was known outside Japan. Specs-wise, this 16-bit console brought Nintendo on par with the Sega Genesis and PC Engine, and in many ways surpassed them on the technical level. With more RAM, a larger color palette, better sound, more sprites on screen at once, and with some games even sporting additional processors within the cartridges themselves like the Super FX chip, the Super Nintendo made for one very powerful machine. Ultimately, the Super Nintendo became home to some of the greatest games from a wide variety of genres. Platformers, racing games, shooting games, fighting games, adventure games, flying games, you name it. But perhaps the most unique video game format was the role-playing game, or RPG. In this format, the players are given one or a whole team of characters and tasked with taking said characters on a grand adventure throughout a well-defined world within the game. Exploring castles or dungeons, or insert enemy stronghold of choice here. Befriending and protecting the citizens of local villages. Traveling to far-off lands to find treasures or artifacts to take they further through the story. And along the way encountering many bad guys. Such games are heavily text-based, often essential to follow the story, and unlike normal action-adventure games in which combat happens in real time, in an RPG, the combat is turn-based. In other words, when you encounter an enemy or a group of enemies, you are taken into a sub-part of the game where you must fight them. Only one character can attack at a time, almost like a board game. You must choose whether your first character must attack, defend, or use an item. Then you must choose whether your second character must attack, defend, or use an item, and so forth. After which, the enemies have their turns in making their moves. The goal is to deplete your opponent's health points to 0 before they deplete yours and the game is over. Of course, there were some exceptions to the rule. Action RPGs like the Zelda and Mana series opted for real-time combat, with hack-and-slashing and shooting instead of turn-based combat. The more enemies you defeat and the further you get into the games, the more experience points your characters earn, thus allowing your characters to become stronger, learn more powerful attacks and capabilities, and ultimately stand a better chance against stronger opponents. Obviously, the RPG format, of course, didn't originate with the Super Nintendo. Such games have been around since the mid-1970s. But it was Sega, Nintendo, and Squaresoft who helped revolutionize the format. Sega with their flagship science fiction-based Phantasy Star series, and Squaresoft with their more famous Final Fantasy series, which found its home on both the NES and SNES. The Super Nintendo's library featured an enormous number of role-playing games. Chrono Trigger, Illusion of Gaia, Tales of Phantasia, Secret of Mana, Terranigma, Breath of Fire, Lufia and the Fortress of Doom, Seiken Densetsu 3, Mahojin Guru Guru 2, Shinseki Odesilya, Shin Megami Tensei 2, Tenshi no Uta Shiroki Tsubasa no Inori. No, I'm not making any of these up. If some of these titles don't sound familiar to you, there is probably a good reason. A lot of these RPGs were not released outside Japan. In Japan, role-playing games were, and still are, extremely popular. Many often incorporated an anime style in the design of their characters and worlds. So much so, that RPGs that originated from Japan have evolved into their own genre, JRPGs. And yet, on the Super Nintendo, most were either only released in English in PAL regions or were not released in English at all. Such is the case with the subject matter of today's profile. You are looking at Ranma 1/2, Akanekodan Teki Hihou, which roughly translates to Ranma 1/2, Treasure of the Red Cat Gang. The Ranma 1/2 franchise had previously 2 outings on the Super Nintendo, both of which got an international release. Ranma 1/2 Chonai Geki Tohen, which was re-released in the West as Street Combat completely stripped of any semblance of Ranma 1/2, and Ranma Bakuretsu Ran Tohen, released in the West as Ranma 1/2 Hard Battle, both of which were fighting games in the same vein as Street Fighter II, and developed by NCS Company and Atelier Double respectively. This time around, things would be different. Ranma's third entry on the SNES would borrow more from Final Fantasy rather than Street Fighter. Adding to this game's more story-based narrative, the developing duties went to none other than Rumiksoft, Rumiko Takahashi's own personal software company. For the first time, players would take control of a whole team of their favorite Ranma 1/2 characters, and lead they on a grand adventure that would take them from the Nerima district to faraway villages, across vast seas, dangerous forests, desolate deserts, ancient castles, and other mysterious lands. All the classic attacks from the anime and manga return. Ranma's Hiryu Shotenha, Ryoga's Shishi Hokodan, as well as a few new attacks and powers, such as Akane's Mina Teat.
It's Mina Tea, you pervert!
Which allows her to heal the entire team. And of course, what Ranma 1/2 game would be complete without a bucket and kettle to transform your team of characters at will? The game was released exclusively in Japan in 1993 on the Super Famicom. It was published by Toho, the company famous for the Godzilla movies. It was a no-brainer that Akanekodan Teki Hihou would be a huge success, but sadly it was never released outside Japan and never translated to English, though that didn't stop the most die-hard fans from playing it. Many video game companies were notorious for being import-unfriendly, but Nintendo had, by far, the strangest ways of keeping out import titles. When Nintendo released the SNES to the West, they made some huge changes. In PAL regions such as the UK, Europe, and Australia, the Super Nintendo was physically identical to the Super Famicom on both the outside and on the inside, except for one critical component, the Circuit Integrated Checking Chip, or CIC chip, essentially a regional lockout chip. It functions by communicating between the game and the console. Long story short, PAL and NTSC units have different CIC chips configured for that specific region. So while Japanese games will fit in a PAL console, the CIC won't let the game boot up. Adding to the import unfriendliness, in Western NTSC regions such as the United States and Canada, the Super Nintendo was released with a completely different shell, and the game cartridges were both physically wider and blockier in shape, meaning that they wouldn't fit in a PAL or Japanese SNES unless you enlarged the cartridge slot or bought an adapter. And even if you did, you'd still be at the mercy of the CIC. Interestingly, the US and Canadian Super Nintendos have the same NTSC CIC chip as used in Japanese consoles. And due to the enlarged cartridge slot, this will allow Japanese games to fit in a US console. The cartridges even have the same number of pins. However, to keep the Japanese imports out and to save themselves the bother of designing a CIC purely for the US, Nintendo fitted the Western NTSC consoles with two little plastic tabs, preventing the Japanese cartridges from sliding all the way in. However, gamers quickly discovered workarounds. All they had to do was pull the tabs out with a pair of pliers and presto! Now the Japanese games will fit and boot up.
And for those of us under the equator... it is now possible to play Japanese Super Nintendo games on a PAL Super Nintendo. With the SNES hardware patents having long expired, the video game modding communities were able to reverse engineer the CIC technology and replace it with something a little bit more import-friendly. Introducing the Super CIC. The Super CIC can either be purchased online ready to install, or you can manufacture your own with off-the-shelf parts. The key component is a PIC16F630 microchip programmed with the Super CIC lock code. Installation is not beginner-friendly, especially with the rarer one-chip consoles, so you may want to leave the installation to the professionals. With this new board installed, the Super Nintendo will load games from any region, Europe, Japan, you name it. The Super CIC can be installed on both PAL and NTSC consoles, meaning that Japanese games will now play on a PAL system. And with a cartridge adapter for US cartridges, the compatibility is limitless.
But even though the possibility to play Japanese Super Famicom games is now available to everyone, unless you read Japanese, there is going to be a language barrier preventing you from getting through the game. The good news is while many of these games have not been officially released in English, a dedicated legion of fans have taken matters into their own hands. With the advent of emulation software and hacking, a few clever cookies have been able to rip the ROMs from the old cartridges and manipulate them on their computers. In doing so, some have been able to write their own fan translation patches of these Japanese games and apply these patches to the ROMs. In other words, it is now possible to play the video game ROMs with fan-made English translations replacing the dialogue. Piracy aside, the simplest way to play them is to download the translated ROMs from the internet and play them on a PC emulator or a flash cartridge like the Super UFO Pro 8. If you would rather apply these patches to a legally obtained copy of the ROMs, there are emulation-based clone consoles that will get the job done, such as the Hyperkin Retron 5 and the Cyber Gadget Retro Freak, both of which will copy the ROM straight from the original cartridge and allow you to apply the translation patches via SD card. The Super UFO Pro 8 also offers the ability to back up Super Famicom ROMs, which you can then apply translation patches to. However, the unit we tested seems to have a defective cartridge port. But if you're looking for convenience, the translated ROMs have since been unofficially released in physical form as reproduction cartridges, meaning that you can buy these games online, pop them in your system, and voila! You're playing the original game in English as though it were released as such back in the day. The bottom line is that today there are no shortage of ways to play Ranma Akanekodan Teki Hihou in English. You have emulators, flash cartridges, clone systems that will allow you to translate a real cartridge, and reproduction cartridges with the translation patches readily installed. And now, however you choose to play, we are finally able to delve into this treasure trove of secrets. Sometimes, a major catastrophe can occur due to something so simple. An oversight, a misunderstanding, the littlest faux pas can cause ripples which ultimately grow into horrible outcomes. The scene, one schnockered night in China. The gods and demons graveyard. The perpetrator, the Jusenkyo guide. Staggering, stumbling, he tripped over what would appear to be a headstone, knocking it over, smashing it!
Oh dear me, I made an accident! Nobody here, no one see me do this. Better leave now or else I am deep doo-doo.
But this was no mere headstone. This was a stone marker, acting as a spirit ward, locking away a great evil. Centuries ago, there lived a monstrous Bakeneko named Kamusaru, who amassed so much power, he transformed himself into Neko Mao, the Ghost Cat King. Right away, he plotted amongst his fellow cats to form the infamous Red Cat Gang to punish and enslave the humans and claim the planet for themselves. But a brave warrior named Ryu confronted the Ghost Cat King and his cronies and engaged in a battle so epic it tore apart the heavens!
I cannot let you take the Earth, you villain! Hiss! Hiss, 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 hiss! Hiss! Whoa! You have the power to fly? Then I shall fly too! All right, let the battle begin! Ba-da-da-da-da-da! I won't let you have your way! Give it up! I have won! I will never give in!
Ryu managed to defeat the foul beast and seal away his powers into a mega holy artifact known as the Star Crystal. To cement this evil would never surface again, he split the crystal into 3 relics: the Peach Gem, the Sakura Sword, and the Forest Mirror, and he hid they away to the deepest, darkest corners where they would never, ever be found. As for Kamusaru himself, he was banished to the cold depths of the earth by the sacred stone at the gods and demons graveyard. Until Stumblenuts came along, that is. Cats. Yeah, I bet all this time you thought they were on your side. Obviously, you've never taken a real good look at your pet. Can't you see it? In their eyes? The disgust, the utter disdain, the conceit! That look that just screams. Oh, if only I were stronger than you stupid human. I'd be calling the shots around here. You may think they have simple mind, but your cats are secretly plotting against you, waiting for their leader to return, waiting for he to obtain that star crystal. Grant they the power they crave even more than Whisker Lickens, and take this planet for their own. They still remember that day they came so close! Kamusaru will not let his species down this time. Right away, he forms a new Red Cat gang. Right away, he builds an army of human sympathizers and cats alike. To beef up their numbers, they travel all over the world via blimp, and they kidnap the strongest, able-bodied fighters, and brainwash they into loyal soldiers. They kidnap the weaker humans to use as laborers for their more menial tasks. The human slaves set up fortresses and outposts all over the land, while his royal cat emissaries search every millimeter of the planet to find those treasures. When he finds all three, in a sacred ceremony, the Star Crystal will be resurrected, and Nekomao, the Ghost Cat King, will tread the earth once more. But they came meowing at the wrong door, as they show up at the Tendo residence and kidnap famed martial artist Genma Saotome. His son, Ranma, a powerhouse, a paradigm in the martial arts world, and his fiancée, Akane Tendo, a bone-crushing brute of a girl with amazing healing powers!
Mina Tiat!
Do not sit idly by! Unfortunately, Lord Yasha and his cronies are given an unintended assist by Ryoga Hibiki, showing up a day late for a duel between he and Ranma, as per usual. After a brief fracas, the hot-headed yet well-meaning Ryoga joins the party. Cologne, a 400-year-old Amazon, tells they the tale of the Red Cat Gang, and they learn what they're up against. Her great-granddaughter, Shampoo, also a gifted martial artist, lends a helping hand. Ranma's childhood friend Ukyo Kuonji plays the Nurse Joy role, however possible it may be, gladly setting up her okonomiyaki shop within every new town to which our party may roam.
Hey, Ranma, honey! I'm giving you a discount, so please buy something. Look, vegetable okonomiyaki! It's good for you, makes a nice little health point recovery. Only 10 yen. Or how about my seafood okonomiyaki? Only 50 yen. I also got pork okonomiyaki, that'll be 100 yen. And if you want a little something of everything, you can buy a mixed okonomiyaki for 200 yen. We also added a new menu item, Modanyaki. If you ever need a quick pick-me-up and complete health restoration, this will really hit the spot. Only 300 yen! Ranma, honey, things sound really serious. Just don't forget about me, okay? Ron-chan?
And so, the journey begins, to topple the Red Cat Gang's chain of command, link by link, to get to the Peach Gem, the Sakura Sword, the Forest Mirror, before the cats can get their claws on them, to bring all their hypnotized friends back to reality, and to cram, kick, stuff that bastard cat back underground where he belongs. Lord Kamusaru has a method to his madness, and he has set up a tree of power within the Red Cat Gang. Even the lowest man on the totem pole need fulfill the highest criteria. Here, we start the pecking order, from bottom to top. Now that the nefarious plan is in motion, the world is overcome with a myriad of fighters of all different shapes, sizes, and species. They have spread throughout the land, the most powerful of which taking arms at the Cat Gang strongholds. Everything from Akanekodan soldiers, to blue ogres, to rogue destroyers, to dragon tamers, to Dojo Yaburi. All top-trained soldiers ready and raring to eviscerate. Even the creatures running in the wild, attacking the party on their own behest, have become unknowing allies to the cats. The town of Narima, Japan is house to some of the greatest martial artists alive. Who better to brainwash and introduce into the new feline order? Through force, the Red Cat Gang infiltrates the town's numerous hotspots, most notably Furinken High School, kidnaps its most prized prospects, and through a form of mind control which preys upon their base desires, transforms they into high-ranking officials within their company. At the top sits Principal Kuno, motivated by his maniacal thirst for power, with his own private armies at his disposal, not to mention the spawn of his loins, Tatiwaki and Kodachi, seated at his right hand.
Move your ass! You're in my way!
The headmaster of Furinken High pushes the other brainwashed slaves, squeezing every last drop of work out their bodies, and at the same time, commanding the enormous blimp from which they are transported. And should the order be disrupted by wayward intruders, he is quick to respond with a well-aimed pineapple bomb. Then, there is the master of dark magic, the man from Ganymede! Moose. He is driven by his love for his would-be bride, Shampoo, and wants to steal her away to this clan of cats and rule over the land as an unstoppable power couple.
Yes! You and I will be joining the Red Cats together, Shampoo.
What you talking to? You so stupid, Moose! Shampoo never joined Red Cats!
Hey, pay attention. If we join the Red Cats, we can live together in total happiness.
Shampoo never lived with Moose! Soon, Ranma come rescue Shampoo!
I'll punch that jerk's lights out in one fell swoop!
Hey, that's a bunch of tough talk you got there.
Ranma?
You fell right into my trap! Get ready to deal with some serious pain, Ranma Saotome!
A wizard of hidden weaponry, Moose shows no quarter. He is frenzied, manic, kill crazy. In other words, not much has changed. And speaking of which, the lowest in this ladder of lunacy, Ranma Saotome's father, Genma. He has given in to primal lusts for food, drink, and dirty sex. Under his cursed panda guise, Genma has procured his own personal brothel in Sakura Village, where he enjoys a frivolous life of leisure.
Oh, hey! Aren't you a bunch of cuties?
Hey yourself, bud. We want to join the God Panda's harem.
Is that so? Is that so? Such unbridled enthusiasm. Our Lord the God Panda will be almighty pleased. Go right through.
Thank you.
See you later.
Ah, cute girls.
Like so many before he, Genma reigns under a false prestige. He has adopted the role of God Panda, and the Sakura villagers look at he as some kind of divine being and pay him tribute.
The gang's boss is an absolute sex fiend. I heard them call it a God Panda.
The hard truth, Genma cares only about himself, and it didn't require any amount of brainwashing to lure he to the Akanekodan. He was offered the false promise of a cure for his Jusenkyo curse, and for that reason, as well as all the free food, drink, and dirty sex, he has sided with the enemy. Though, while amongst their ranks, he attempts to play reconnaissance and get closer to the mysterious Lord Bugen. These two sniveling children are Akira and... well, Akira's nameless brother. Sounds familiar. These two are lowly chamberlains, sent mainly to the towns to deliver messages from the High Order, and to clear out new turf for their ever-expanding enterprise. They are the brothers-in-law of Lord Yasha, a lower-ranking official amongst the cats, and procured their jobs purely out of nepotism. These two nerdy little goofs practically soil themselves in the face of any type of threat, and they are not to be taken seriously. For the cat rebellion to succeed, it needs manpower, and the cats and human workers under the gang's employ can only handle so much. It is up to this man, the sumo-trained Lord Yasha, to traffic reluctant human slaves and put they to work, to build their gaudy structures, to die on the battlefield, to do every individual menial task the cats wouldn't dare sully their paws on. He succeeds in kidnapping Genma Saotome and orders a hit on Akanekodan. Lord Yasha's name carries a lot of weight. To hear it is to tremble in fear! But honestly, he is a feeble-minded man, hiding behind the character he has created for himself. Though he talks a good game, preaching the rhetoric of the cat gang and the plight of kitty cats everywhere, he comes across clumsy and unsure, even suffers from the occasional moment of politeness.
Who the hell are you guys?
Pleased to meet you.
No, the pleasure's mine. Wait a minute. What am I saying?
Calm down. You need to learn basic courtesy if you wish to become a decent adult.
One can tell he is not the perfect fit for the role to which he has been inserted. Embarrassingly, he cannot even pronounce the word Akanekodan without being corrected.
But never mind that. We are, the Pink Pussy Sector. That's who.
Oh, Lord Yasha? We're actually the Red Cat Gang, sir.
Oh yeah, rightio. Sorry, I just joined yesterday.
In battle, he is formidable, but a mere pushover pitted against a skilled fighter such as Ranma Saotome.
Now, you can't get rid of me that easily.
And though loyal to Lord Kamusaru,
Oh well, maybe you can.
in defeat, he is little more than a big baby.
My deepest respects to you, Ranma Saotome, for you to defeat someone as powerful as I, Lord Yasha.
The wife of Lord Yasha is a creepy old witch by the name of Rasetsume. She very clearly wears the pants in this family. After her husband's defeat at the hands of Ranma, she quickly steps in and cleans up the mess he made.
I am Rasetsume, Lord Yasha's wife. My husband has become obsessed with the Super Nintendo and no longer does any real work. And it's all your fault.
Unscrupulous and conniving, she hatches inhuman schemes to achieve her sinful goals. Upon learning Ranma is in possession of the Hajutsu Token, the key to one of the treasures the cats were after, Rasetsume orchestrates the kidnapping of an innocent young girl named Lin, the daughter of the Persimmon village elder, and holds her for ransom at her stronghold, the Tower of the Demon Woman. And should Ranma be so bold to make the trade, who's to say she'd even live up to her end of the bargain?
Aren't you going to let Lin go now?
Got a new wrinkle in the deal for ya. If you want her back, the village people will have to haul their butts out of there first.
But that's so cruel.
Tough titty, young dame.
Okay, Ratsume. Now you've made me angry. Someone call Dr. Tofu. She's going to need him by the time I'm finished with her. Come on, Ranma, let's go.
Okay. This should be most interesting. Bring it on.
She is much more threatening in battle than her pansy husband. She even seems to have an offensive knowledge of witchcraft, summoning wild wind vortexes at her enemy. So hateable and evil is she! She even gives her own cohorts the willies. Lord Kamusaru's sanctum Santorum is guarded by 2 heavily armed samurai skilled in the art of element bending. Despite their peddler-looking appearances, they are quite efficient and quite deadly. Fujin, the ever-serious warrior, master of the dreaded Gale Kick. Raijin, the fully armored juggling monkey man, heaving strikes his opponent's way. These 2 spell double trouble to any interloper who would dare test they. The weakest of the glit-edged guard, the 4 gods of the Akanekodan. The best way to describe Genbu is he's an annoying little pest. And he's totally not a Nazi. He is outfitted with the natural armor of the tortoise, firmly helmeted with a giant shell on his back. As the cats amass more power and resources, Genbu hardwires that big ol' shell with a giant tank turret, capable of firing the dreaded Dragon Bullet, his most faithful attack. Though high in the pecking order, Genbu is little more than a cowardly weakling with a god complex. He barks and barks about how powerful he is, but so long he has lived the good life with his gang. In that time he has grown lazy and soft. Forever he will be that sniveling jerk talking smack while hiding behind the bully, just waiting to be physically shut up. But so long as the cats keep gobbling up resources, Genbu will be at work in his woodshed, strengthening his massive cannon. If there is one member of the cat gang with something to prove, it is the mad Birdman Suzaku. This kid is tiny, diminutive, weak of body, so he has his trusty machine. He rides around on a giant metallic chicken. That's right, I said a chicken. He claims it to be a phoenix, but something got lost in design. It, respectively named Suzaku II, offers Suzaku everything he would need and then some. The ability of flight, impregnable armor, bone-crushing melee attacks, deadly accurate long-range attacks. This metallic monstrosity makes Suzaku one of the most fearsome components of this evil cat horde. He stays on his opponents like white on rice. He will follow they to the ends of the earth if need be. On top of all of that, it is he who is responsible for the acquisition and hypnosis of the Kuno clan, Lord Kamusaru's most valuable brainwashees.
Looks like you failed, you nincompoop! What? But that was my Super Suzaku! Mommy! Well then, the hell with it. I'm going home. You can sort out this big mess yourself. Screw you guys, I'm going home.
A whiny little brat to the utmost end, Suzaku wants desperately to say to Lord Kamusaru that he was the one who vanquished the biggest threat to their Utopia. This mysterious androgynous character is Biaco, loyal guard of Lord Kamusaru. Clad head to foot in tight white feline garb, Biaco claws, hacks, and slashes at enemies like a wheat thresher. Often placed as the last line of defense, she is a noble fighter who is always learning, always improving. She loves to fight for the sheer sport of it, even catches a perverse glee out of it. And though she shares much in common with her partner Seiryu, she doesn't share his sportiness in battle, often using her bizarre fetishist sexuality as a weapon.
Be gentle, it's my first time.
The leader of the 4 gods of the Akanekodan. Of all the soldiers in this Red Cat elite guard, this man, Seiryu, is the biggest mystery. A handsome gent clad in traditional blue Japanese armor. He is clean, quiet, classy, fair. To all those who would oppose the resurrection of the Ghost Cat King, he looks upon they not as enemies, but fellow warriors who fight for a just cause. In battle, he respects his opponents, and unlike most others in his cadre, never resorts to gadgets and assorted trickery. Even when the cats tapped into a great power and used that power to upgrade their own abilities, Seiryu refused. He looked at that as a cheat. He would improve, yes, but on his own laurels. Through sweat and perseverance, he would beef up his already impervious offense using the Holy Sword Strike and the Daring Smile Flame Attack! Why? Oh, why, pray tell, is such a kind, proper gentleman under the dark umbrella of the Red Cat Gang? Perhaps there is more to the man than meets the eye.
So then, why are we squaring off this time?
Simple. I am just curious to see which one of us is stronger. That's all. Nothing mysterious. Just another little test. Like when I so many years ago.
What? You're actually claiming that you're...
Bah! Enough of this small talk. If you cannot defeat me, then you can never hope to reach the lair of the Ghost Cat King.
Damn you to hell then! Those poor villagers placed so much of their misguided faith and trust in you, but you turned out to be nothing more than a cheap sham. For their sakes, I will defeat you, Seiryu!
The dark figure, Lord Bugen, is a high-ranking general of foreboding stature. He commands his soldiers from the all-conspicuous shadows, his face a complete mystery to most. Very rarely does he sully himself to communicate with the outside world, but as he does, he never ever ditches the cover of shadow. The cats speak his name as if he is a god, near or equal the stature of Lord Kamusaru himself. No one has ever witnessed his true power, but it is the stuff of legend. In the brief moments where he would stoop to venture outside the ivory tower, he would show a mere inkling of his natural endowment. With a wave of his hand, he could create a massive fire burst, causing the interlopers on the receiving end to scatter. Oh dear, I've said too much. The man orchestrating this whole plot is no man at all. He is a monster, Bakeneko, much like the ghost cat Maomo Lin and Ranma Saotome's greatest fear. Long he has slumbered, exiled from the human world, robbed of his once flourishing empire. In that time, he has done nothing but stew and crave and yearn to live that life once more. When the Jusenkyo Guide unleashes Kamusaru upon the Earth, the cunning kitty wastes no time amassing an army and evolving a plan. In this form, he is strong, but to hold the star crystal in his paws again would increase his power 100-fold! Not too many details on the personality, or is that animality, of this evil deity. Is this thirst for power and control a compensation for his own personal inadequacies? Who can say? But whether he is the supreme entity among entities as he claims, or an overhyped, emasculated pushover, he absolutely will not stop until he becomes a Ghost Cat King. Once he has gathered the Peach Gem, the Sakura Sword, the Forest Mirror, he will assemble once more the Star Crystal. He will tap into the energy it creates, and it will make all his wishes come true. His wishes of global domination, his wishes of feline takeover, his wishes of absolute power, all 100% true. As the Ghost Cat King, Kamusaru gains a newly purple-furred visage, a crimson cape and crown, and the bell hanging around his neck becomes the Star Crystal. When he challenges an opponent, the fight is literally the only thing that matters in the universe! The whole world doth melt away! And the battle is set against the backdrop of endless swirling cosmos. The Ghost Cat King can obliterate many opponents at once with his dreaded Neko Arachi! A tempest which envelops the opponent from feet to head in a vicious maelstrom of wind and cat hair. How would one dare combat such power? There is hearsay of a magical item located in the Cave of Ancients, protected by the warrior spirit, of a relic known as the Star Willow. The very same Star Willow brave warrior Ryu used centuries ago to lock away the power of Neko Mao into the Star Crystal. The warrior spirit would test our party to face themselves, quite literally. For acquisition of the Star Willow, Kamusaru's strength can be negated somewhat with this enchanted item, but only temporarily. The inevitable would only be delayed. If, hypothetically, Kamusaru were to gain this power, it would be the end. For Ranma and company, for you, for me, for all of us. Pantyhose Taro, chased into a red sunset. Prince Kirin, flushed away in a funnel of ocean. Prince Toma, raked over the rails and thwarted. Rouge, the Musk Dynasty, Ryukumon, Lord Saffron, every individual opponent of Ranma Saotome eventually went down to the Quiet Night. The stories are out there, they're widespread, they're readily available.
Why is it that this story is relegated to this obscure, tiny, gray box? Perhaps it is this story is the one what didn't have a happily ever after. Perhaps the historians wish to portray the tale of Ranma Saotome as a triumphant one, when in reality, it ended in as massive a failure as one can comprehend! Maybe this! Hidden away on this obsolete storytelling device is the true final chapter in the history of Ranma 1/2! Look outside. I know you've seen them, the cats! They're everywhere! The foul stench of cat urine in the air. The meowing echoing through the night. Are they leading us all into a false sense of security? Who's really in control of this planet, us? Or them?
This has been a Ranma 1/2 character profile, featuring the voices of Mindy-chan, Hari, Mippa, Anna Chloe Murray, Tim Darby, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Jarrah White. And an extra special thanks goes out to Bugbore 2010. This profile was brought to you in part by JW Studios.